Well, hey everyone, welcome to Stewardship Leader. I'm your host, Leo Sabo, and today I have with me Dana Rofer. She is from Faith Driven Entrepreneur for Teens. Dana reached out to us just recently, and I've had a couple conversations with her, and we are kindred spirits. She really love this idea of entrepreneurship for young people. They've developed a course. We'll talk about that. It's called Called to Create, and we'll talk about that. But before we get started, Dana, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast, share this important topic of entrepreneurship for younger people.
Yeah, of course. I'm so grateful to be here. And as you mentioned, have just really enjoyed the conversation. So I'm excited for this one too.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, let's just get started with you. How did you end up at Faith Driven Entrepreneur for Teens? Tell me a little bit about your journey and then tell us about the organization itself, how it got started, and what your vision is. What do you guys want to accomplish?
I'd love to. It's a total God story, as they always are, right? So I've been on my own entrepreneurial journey, I would say, since probably high school, just
Hmm.
trying to understand and seeking the Lord of what does it mean? When we start to follow him, what does it mean for our career? What does it mean for our life? And just trying to live in that place of surrender. So come around 2016 is really when my husband Matt and I jumped into our own entrepreneurial journey. We started a school here in West Michigan. We started a children's business fair for kids. You can see the things that we've done and the things that we've built have been very entrepreneurial and in a very entrepreneurial mindset. So, business fair, we've been doing it almost 10 years now. And, there'll be a day in May where we have over 100 kid run businesses. You could just imagine how fun and cool and exciting that is that time. And so we've been kind of stewarding that work here. I'm in West Michigan. So we've been stewarding that work here in West Michigan. And I think it was 2020 that I connected with the Faith Driven team. And it was early in their days too, because I've always been very faith driven in my career. And so it was the early days of the organization and just started having conversations like, I love what y'all are doing. It's really interesting. I'd love to learn more. Not necessarily because I thought that it would become a job one day. Like I had no idea. I just kindred conversations, similar to what we're doing here. And then I think it was October of 2023. Justin Foreman is one of our co-founders, and he had posted on LinkedIn. Justin is all over LinkedIn, so most people know his post, which is so fun. And he posted about wanting to have a part of the organization for teens. And so I reached out right away. I was like, hey, we're in this space, we've got the school, we've got the children's business fair. Like, how can we help? And at that point, it didn't really turn into anything. We didn't really know. Like he didn't really know what it was going to be. I didn't really know. The timing wasn't right, all those things. So then fast forward to January just of this year, and now it's real. And it was a really great opportunity for me to join with the team. So yeah, total God story. Just one of those things.
That's great. That's great. Well, that's usually the best way to proceed as God leads you. So that's wonderful. So tell us about the specific area of Faith Driven Entrepreneur, the teen section. Tell me how that kind of got launched and how that developed and what you guys are really trying to accomplish through it.
Yeah. So Faith Driven Entrepreneur and Faith Driven Investor have been around for a handful of years now. And I think the conversation started to come about because we had thousands of entrepreneurs and investors going through content. So what we do really well at Faith Driven is we create content.
Hmm.
So content that inspires people to think differently, challenges them to think differently, and then inspires them to act differently. So you can imagine when you start having hundreds or thousands of people going through the content in community groups, and then they're saying, well, man, I didn't learn these concepts or these ideas until I was in my, you know, 50s or 60s or late 40s. And so we just started hearing over and over and over again, if only I had heard some of these concepts earlier. If only I would have had this at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. And so that's really what kind of tipped off we have really great content. So what might we be able to put together for this teen student demographic that we could plant these seeds earlier in their life?
I love that. So you're really referring to cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset for teens. So talk about what that really means.
Yeah. So a friend of ours actually at Cedarville University, and it's funny because I'm giving them all the shout outs because I love this tagline. They have a minor at Cedarville in entrepreneurship, and their tagline is entrepreneurship is not a minor, it's a mindset. It doesn't
Mm,
matter what your major is in school. It doesn't matter what you're going to do with your career. But if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you are someone that creates value for other people, that looks to solve problems, that's looking to make things better, right? So I think it's so much more about that mindset and how do you bring that to anything that you're working on. And
yeah.
so in a rapidly changing workplace with rapidly changing technology, I just really believe so deeply that if we have more young people that think entrepreneurial, they're going to be able to be the ones that create the future.
Well, I agree. And I think having that kind of mindset, even if you're working for a company, maybe you have a degree that leads you to a very good paying job, but having that entrepreneurial mindset really helps you to think outside the box. You're not limited to just accomplishing tasks. You think so much differently because you're looking at the bigger picture. You're looking at the value that you're doing and you're trying to do meaningful work. I was raised up in a family where even though entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship mindset was there, we were really driven to go get a good job, get good benefits, and make sure that you have a good paying job. You're putting money aside, and someday you'll have those benefits so you can live off of. And most of us, except for one of my brothers, I have three other siblings. So most of us ended up moving out of having a regular job and doing
Mm,
something else, either on the side or completely. My brother was a business owner for the last 25 years of his life. My sister's opened up several businesses, still running two of them, real estate investments, all kinds of things. But yet it wasn't normal for us to just adapt that. It came almost out of necessity and
mm,
maybe even interest. So how do we do that? How do we help parents to develop that in their kids with when we know that we have this cultural mindset that says, and if you want your kids to succeed, they have to have a high education, maybe a master's
yeah.
degree now or a PhD, and then they could really make it and be successful. How do we help them understand that that actually may not be what's right for those specific kids?
Yeah.
That even if they were to follow that path, having an entrepreneurial mindset would actually benefit them either way.
Yeah, I stories always come to mind in my so apologies, I like to tell stories.
Oh, that's okay.
But I was talking with so my boys are 12 and 10. So they're still younger, but we do a lot of this in our home. But last we have a neighbor boy who just graduated from college and he coaches my son in baseball. He kind of like gives him, private lessons, if you will. And I was sitting with him at my son's baseball game and I was just having these conversations with him and his name is Miles and Miles for a year and a half had been working a part-time job at Taco Bell. Well, he started realizing it was great. He was like building the discipline, he was going to work, he was learning things, he's working with people, he's doing all those things. But he also started to ask these questions like, well, is that the right place forever for me? Or what are some of the things that I'm interested in? And where do I think I want to go with my career potentially? Where am I going? So he was already in that space of asking all those questions and having
Mm,
to answer all those questions. And he started going down the path of, he is going to college. He does want to go to college. He's thinking physical therapy is kind of right up his alley. He's an athlete. He loves, movements in the body and all of that. So one of his friends was working at a local gymnastics business, right?
hmm
And he was like, his friend said to him, he's like, Miles, you should come do this because Miles also like loves kids, really good with kids. It's physical, it's active, it's fun, it's all that. So he starts working with him there. And he was like, wait. I get paid to do this? Like, this is awesome. So
mm,
now he's leaning more towards, he's teaching ninja class to 3 to 8 year olds, right? Like, how fun. So, I
yeah,
mean, if you've got the patience for kids,
sure, of course.
but now he's thinking like, yeah, I'm thinking I still want to stay in a physical therapy track, but what if it's pediatric physical therapy because I really
Mm,
enjoy my time with kids?
yeah,
So that helps me. Like he's connecting these dots. He's finding all these different clues. And then he has individuals like myself and my husband and his parents that are coming around and we're like, you know, our friend Steve, owns a physical therapy practice and they have kids. So I'm like, why don't you spend a day with Steve? Like, what do you think about it? How does it go? So it's that connection of who are you? Who's God made you to be? And helping to like call out those things. And that was even going back to him coaching and kind of like, personal coaching my kid. Right. And we're able to call that out. Like, you're really good with kids. You're really patient. You could, and we can help coach him. And people at church do this all the time with those that are around them. But I think we can really put some intention into it. And we're helping to make the connections. So experiences, right? Like, what experiences might we be able to help them have, whether it's going in to connect with Steve or learning more about the pediatric rehab hospital that we're building here. So I think he's building that mindset, right? But it does somewhat take those people that come around them to say, well, man, I know somebody and you could talk to this person. And if you're not comfortable yet reaching out, like, how can I help you do that? So that's the long-winded answer, but that's what it looks like,
Yeah.
It's just coming alongside them.
I love what you just pointed out is the fact that as a parent, what you can do, and even mentors, people, whether they're church leaders, if they have this understanding that every kid is different, uniquely gifted, and none of us really know, especially when they're younger, we don't know what the path is going to be and we don't know where God's drawing them. And sometimes some kids are very inquisitive. They ask a ton of questions. They begin, like, I have a grandson that's 5 years old. He just turned 5 yesterday. His name is Canyon. He lives in California. And he is like the question kid. I mean, he will wear you out with questions.
Oh, it's the best though.
But yes, he definitely is. But sometimes I'm like, okay, give me a break. That's the 15th question in a row. I don't have any more answers for you. But he comes over sometimes and spends a week or two when they come to town. And I'm into different things. I love cars. So I've got a garage that's set up to fix vehicles. I also got into woodworking about 3 years ago during the pandemic, just because I wanted to stay busy, wanted to stay active. And so I bought a bunch of tools to do that. And he loves that. So when he comes to town, we'll get him and we'll go in the garage and what's my side, the workshop, and he'll say, can we build something? So we built a birdhouse and different things. But he's constantly asking. And I know because of my ability to influence him that way, for his birthday, we asked him, what do you want to buy? And what do you want us to buy you? And he said, I need some tools to fix. Coast is his brother. I need some tools to fix Coast's car that you bought him for Christmas because it's broken. He broke it. So he's already driven to be a fixer because he's watched me and interacted with me.
Yes.
So we do influence kids that way. But if he was
he doesn't know that he can't. He's like, well, why? Of course I can do it. I do it. Right.
But it may be that down the road, as he starts to do stuff, he'll lose interest in that. But the fact that he's interested tells me at least he's interested in working with his hands and fixing things, curious. So I think as parents, we can do that. We can help develop that mindset of curiosity.
Yes.
And not just there's a path for you and you better 100%. Get used to it and better like it because that's all there is. And I think sometimes as parents, because we want our kids to succeed, I know I've done a lot of financial counseling with folks and the children and the financial part of the education expense and all that comes into it. And sometimes I wonder, it's like, does the kid want to go to college? Does he want to go to a private school? Or is that something that you want? And so sometimes as parents, we have that burden of we want the best for our kids, but we really need to resist trying to fit them to a mold and really allow them to develop and ask questions. So I love the fact that you've said, bring them in situations where they have the ability to check things out, go and work one day.
Yes.
Just oversee the business or
whatever
it is that they're interested in.
Ask the questions. It's so important. I do some where I'll just come alongside people and do some coaching around careers. And it's amazing to me, Leo. I've had individuals that get into their 5th year of their teaching program. And that's the very first time that they stepped foot into a classroom as the teacher and realized they hated being in the classroom.
That's right.
And it doesn't mean that they can't adjust and they can't go somewhere else or do something else, but it's amazing to me. I'm like, how do we do that? And not because when I talk about experiences like this, it's not because I'm saying man, they need to make all this money and they need to do all this right away, but the experience of trying something and
Mm.
trying it on and not just seeing what works, but seeing what doesn't and what doesn't light you up. Like
That's
that
right.
is equally as important
It's crucial.
as the things of love this, right? Because otherwise you get into a job and you're 10 years in, you're like, man, I hate this, but what do I
Yeah.
like? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we can just in really, this is why we really focus in on teens. Teens are still in your home. They're still in your church,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think are 20 somethings in your church? Yes. Are they in your home? Yes, kind of sometimes, right? But it gets a lot muddier there. So we still have this space and this time with them to be able to, like, they can fail.
That's right.
So what?
Yeah. It's better
You
that they
don't,
fail then at home while they're
yeah,
still under your roof rather than trying something out and
right,
failing in a big way. Yeah,
right,
I
right.
agree.
And failure's good because it's learning. I mean,
Yeah.
anytime we fail at something, we're learning and we're growing from that as well.
Well, the other thing about failure that's really important is to realize that it's actually a good thing, where school most of the time says failure is not good.
Yes.
So if you fail, you get graded on your performance rather than, hey, you tried, you learned something, and that's a win. And so I think that's where for me entrepreneurship is such an important concept to bring into a child's life, especially teenagers as they're trying to think of what am I really passionate, what do I want to do? College is coming, should I be going? All of that. Because it does allow us to let them try something out, fail, and then not structure that as, oh, you failed, you better not do that again,
Yeah.
but rather to say, it's not failure as long as you get up and keep going. It's a learning experience, and that's just part of life. So yeah, I love entrepreneurship probably for that first reason, which is that failure is part of the process and it's not looked
Yep.
upon as a negative thing.
Yep.
So what skills or mindsets would you say, Dana, are important, especially as we look at a very different future than you and I have grown up in? And how is that going to affect our children, our teens today, as these new AI and everything that's happening? What are some of the skills and mindsets that are important?
Yeah. Adaptability for
Mm,
sure. Being able to have relationships that build relational equity, communication skills. I mean,
yeah,
those are the things that aren't going away. And honestly, if you mean earlier on, you mentioned the pandemic, it was not kind to our
yeah,
young people in these
that's right.
areas,
That's right.
particularly with communication and connecting in real life. And so, again, more opportunities to like, I take great responsibility being the adults that are kind of responsible for where they're headed and helping them to, I mean, we did this the other day. We were at, one of our friends was with us. I took my son and one of his friends to Chick-fil-A. Well, my other son was at practice. In his family, that he comes from a really big family. They don't eat out a lot, and we don't eat out a lot, but probably more than we should. Anyway, so my kids have always ordered on their own, always.
Hmm,
It's just what we do. Like it's just building independence. Like that's
sure.
that's just what we do.
Perfect.
I mean, obviously not in the drive-through, but we went in and we get up there and I asked his friend, I was like, okay, go ahead. You go first. I'll go last. I'm paying. Like you go first. And he was like,
Never
right.
done
Like
this before.
he hadn't done it, which was great. It was a really safe place for us to help him do that and for to help him grow in that way because he hadn't done it before. And it was really sweet and it was really great because we were able to do it. But again, another learning experience of
Mm,
just in independence, right? It's those moments of independence and us realizing that they're capable of it and letting them walk into it. And like they're not gonna fail. I mean, you're gonna get your food.
yeah.
And so I think that's important. You mentioned curiosity. I deeply believe that curiosity is a superpower. Like it is to walk into something and just always be asking the questions. This is why when you said your grandson asked questions, I was like, yes, yes, it can be exhausting. Totally understand that. But it's great
Hmm.
because he's always going to be like, how can I fix it? How can I fix it? How can I make it better? I see this problem that needs to be fixed. What is my role in that? Or who do I need to pull in order to? So, dot connecting, is there a good word for that? I'm not sure, but like just being able to make connections and then bring solutions to them, I think is really important for our young people.
Yeah, it's good. As I think about my grandson, the fact that he's curious also makes him very outgoing Because when we're out and about, we'll go to the store or something. He'll engage with people. He's like my
Yeah.
dad. My dad is very much an extrovert, and he like lives off of feeds off of other people's
Yes.
energy. So he'll go to the store and engage with, the person at the counter or the checker or whatever. And my mom's like, let's just go. Like, don't make this into a relationship building
We're going to be here
exercise.
forever.
But my grandson's the same way. He just naturally is not afraid. I mean, even as a 3-year-old, he'd go around and just start conversations with adults. And it's like, who does that? Well, he
Yeah.
does because he's curious.
Yes.
So I love that. I think that the communication part is an important skill. And if we can help them build that, to communicate clearly, to not be afraid to ask questions, to be bold, then that definitely sets them up for much more ability to succeed and not be afraid to step forward. Because I think entrepreneurship, for people who are not raised up that way, is scary because it takes so much will and independence. And most people who are kind of trained to be employees,
Yeah.
they just want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
They want to know what the rules are. They want to follow the rules. They want to accomplish their task. And then they feel like they've succeeded. Entrepreneurship is a different thing altogether. I've had to make that transition from being an employee
Yeah.
to running an organization, starting several businesses, and it stretched me because I was not equipped for that. And even as a person, I'm more of an introvert, but that process helped me to understand I need to communicate clearly. I need to learn how to, you know, present well. All of those things have been part of that development. And I wish I would have gotten that when I was a teenager. Didn't have to
Yeah.
learn it later in my life.
Yeah.
So,
But being willing to grow, having that growth mindset, right? Where you realize, yes, I need to grow in these areas and that's okay.
mhm.
Right. And I think sometimes the system sets our young people up to say, like, either you know it or you don't.
Hmm.
And that's not true. Like, that's just categorically false in the
Yeah.
real world, because you can learn and you can grow. And then it's not as clear all the time of this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer. Just because maybe at one point in your life you don't have public speaking skills doesn't mean that you can't grow as
Right.
a public speaker and become
right.
that and to grow in that area, right? So I think we're teaching that a little bit like backwards. And then so we have to do a little bit of educating in a different way to encourage that in our young people. You talked about how it felt that most people are like, this is my job, this is my task, I'm going to do it. A lot of those jobs, Leo, we're losing those jobs
That's so true. Yes.
quickly, because when you think about even a marketing job, right, which has been historically a white collar knowledge workers, right? Very quickly. I mean, you can sit with chat right now and you can put together an entire marketing plan.
That's right.
And you can form it. No, I don't like this part, or I like that part, or I'm not really sure. Like, it's done instantaneously. So when we think about that, some of those tasks that maybe it was, this is how you need to do it, and now, magically a design can come to life. It's just a different world too. And so we do need to have this other balance of, okay, we have how we are traditionally educated, which then sets us up for a career, to what is the other side of that? And how are we learning on the other side to be the one that's creating and making and bringing things to life?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to go on a rabbit trail, but I will resist because I was thinking about, I'm very much a learner. So one of the things that I've learned for years is investing, real estate, stock investing, business, trying to analyze businesses. And so I keep pretty close an eye on what's happening, especially with new technology. And Tesla is, about to roll out a bunch of robots who are going to take a lot of the factory jobs. And when that happens, what are people going to do?
There are already robots in factories. I mean, this is not a new thing.
No. But it's just going to accelerate because now what used to be done by machines, but it needed still human interaction in certain areas. Well, even that will be replaced. And when that's replaced, there's going to be a lot of people that need to have the ability to kind of reinvent themselves. And that's going to be a more creative job, not a task-driven job.
Totally. Honestly, how exciting for followers of Jesus. Because we're connected to the Creator God.
That's right.
I mean, this is why our course is called to Create. Like, we are created in the image of the Creator. Yeah. And so this, I feel like, is our opportunity to say, okay, God, you've created me. What does that mean? I'm created in your image. I can become a creator, but what are the things that I'm uniquely gifted to do?
Mm.
And how can I step into that? Right. And I think what a beautiful thing to be able to step into his work and to bring some alignment in your life and in your work and as you walk with him. And I don't know, it makes me excited. Like, sure, is there this piece that's like, not sure how that's going to go? Of course, we all have that. But then on the other side, I just truly feel like what an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity for us, believers and those that work in the church or work in ministry to say, all right, Lord, what is our role here? And what are you doing in this space? And how can we be ready to help support people that need a change or a shift or different ways to grow?
Yeah. I do think Christians have a kind of, I don't know, I think we're favored in some ways because we have the ability to see ourselves and see how God's created us. So our ability to understand that God is so creative in the way he has built and created us and can literally lead us in any direction he wants to. And if he's put that already inside of us, it's just about believing, having faith to walk that out. And we're not limited by systems. We're not limited by somebody else's limitations on us. We can say, you know what? I don't feel that that's what God has me, and I'm going to move and go where God has me to go. And so I love the idea of infusing that into our young people so that they become confident in their identity in Christ and then also in the gifting that they've been given. Yes, those will be discovered and refined, and experience will add more and more to that. But for them to start knowing and having that identity and knowing that that they were created to create, that they are serving a creator who has no limitation and has given us the ability to, to come alongside and do things with him. That's very exciting for someone young to know that
Yes.
their future is just incredibly exciting, right? And it
Yeah.
will be. So
And
I love that.
I also hope, Leo, that it takes the pressure off to
Mm,
some degree. I mean, we're never going to be
good.
without the pressure, but you're walking with God. Like it's not
Yeah,
up to you. It's not up
that's
to
right.
me,
That's
right?
right.
We get to
That's
do
right.
it with him. And I think that's another thing that is just such a gift of the perspective of walking with the Lord, where we're walking together and we don't have to do it on our own. And
Mm.
he's the one that is guiding our path.
That is a great point. That is a great point. All right, so let's dig into the content of the course that you mentioned. So, Call to Create, and that's what the course is called. So, how do I know, or how do parents know, if Call to Create is right for their teen?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, it doesn't have to be a teen that is already entrepreneurial. It really doesn't matter. I mean, these conversations are about who are they? What does it mean in the world? Now, at Faith Driven, what we do really well is we tell stories through the lens of entrepreneurs and businesses. And
Mm,
the reason that I also love utilizing business in this content, so through these video stories of people, actual people and companies, is business is something that we see every day in both our physical and our digital worlds, right?
that's true.
So when
Yes.
you think of teens, they're used to it. Like they know what a business is. They know when they're going into something. So it's a concept that they really know and understand.
Hmm.
And so it is entrepreneurial for sure. But then it's also these stories from people like Dude Perfect and Lecrae. And we've
Hmm.
got Pat Lencioni talking them through the Working Genius assessment, which is so cool because it really is starting to understand those gifts.
Mm.
Um, and so for teens, it really could, it's definitely relevant to all of them. I think if there's a deeper interest in business, might be great, but they'll get something out of it, whether they're business oriented or not.
Yeah. I do really like the fact that you guys have brought some really key people to be part of that
Yeah.
content. I'm definitely a fan of Patrick Lencioni. All of these books right here,
Yeah.
they're all Patrick. And he's helped me tremendously in understanding the value of work. I remember one of his books just so clearly helped me to understand. I've always believed this, but I've never had the language on how to communicate it. Because when I'm coaching people on their finances, many times their perspective is, I don't make enough money. I'm in the wrong
Mhm.
career. I haven't had the break of getting the right job, or I didn't go to college, or whatever it is. And they think of themselves as less than because of their ability to earn,
Mm.
or because of the kind of job that they've been kind of forced to take. And many times they're unfulfilled in their work.
Mhm.
And I think part of that, from a biblical lens, God has created all work to be meaningful and valuable. And if you have this perspective, I'm at this place, I hate it. I hate the people I work with. I can't wait until God rescues me and put me somewhere else. I think that's a wrong mindset, right? So anyway, he's helped me in so many different ways. So I love that you've brought him into this course to be able to speak to young people because his experience is vast and certainly can add a lot of value. And then Lecrae and so many others that have done
Hmm.
it. All right, so let's talk about how does the program work within a church? We know it's
Yeah.
routines. How do we use that within a church context?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really flexible. So the course is online and it's through a platform that can be accessed in any place. The strongest and most effective way to go through Called to Create is with others,
Hmm,
right? We
makes
know
sense.
this. If we're doing personal one-on-one study with our own self, it's only as good as the time and effort that we give to it, but we don't have anyone to reflect with about what we're learning. And so we do love when groups get together, and it might not be like a whole church. It might just be, hey, we've got these 5 young people that are wrestling with where do I go, what do I want to do, might be a little bit interested in business. You don't really know, like they're just kind of asking where do we go, but they have someone in their life that really cares for them,
Hmm,
and they can facilitate it with that group. So
nice.
the way that it's built is it's 12 different sessions or 12 different episodes. But each user can also access it so they can go back to the content if they want to over time.
Yeah, that's great. So what is the target age for the course that you're hoping for?
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, it is across a big range. We'll get something out of the content. I
Hmm.
think we have really targeted in through some of our beta testing, some of our initial users. Sophomore, junior year, you're not quite making those big decisions yet, but they're there. Like, they're coming, right? So
Hmm.
we're starting to plant seeds just at that right time before they start making their next decisions.
Hmm.
Because again, the exposure piece is really important. So if we are able to, I mean, we go through 12 vastly different businesses
Hmm.
through the course.
Right.
Well, that's giving them angles in very different areas. You got YouTubers, you've got artists, you've got Phil Vischer who started VeggieTales, you've got
Hmm.
a car dealership. I mean, they're all kinds of different businesses.
Hmm.
And so if we can give more exposure to kids at a younger age, it feels like that sophomore, junior is really the right spot.
Yeah, makes sense. And I love the idea of having all these different types of businesses because again, it expands the ability to see this model in entrepreneurship being expressed in different ways. That's
Right.
not a, I think sometimes kids, my kids aren't teenagers now, obviously, but they've been through that season. And I think it would be so valuable, or would have been for our daughters to go through something like this. I have two completely different types of, you know, personalities. And, one is an A type, very much like me, a rule follower, a list maker, and, has to check things off and very systematic. And then the other one is just a free spirit, even the way they kept their rooms was completely different. One was neat, the other one was just shoved everything under the bed. So that's continued in their adult life. And as they were approaching college, my wife and I, fortunately, God had taught us how to manage money as early 20s, and so we started doing the right things and built up savings for them to go to college. So we said, you're going to be paid. Your tuition is going to be paid. You get to choose where you want to go. But we felt as Courtney, as our youngest, as she was approaching the 17, 18 years old, we just didn't know what she was going to do. She didn't know what she was going to do. And I felt like I literally had a conversation with my wife Natalie, and then eventually with Courtney, and I said, I just don't, I didn't want to say college is not for you because I didn't want to
Mm,
discourage her, but at the
sure.
same time, I wanted to open the door to say, if college isn't what you want to do, that's okay. Like I would prefer to take the money that we set aside for college and use it a different way. Maybe even help you launch a business if that's what you want to do. I want you to get some training, get some exposure, find out what, all of that. But I think because there was nothing to guide her except our voice, which
Mm,
parents are respected in some ways and kind of like they roll their
yep.
eyes and like, oh, it's mom and dad. So they dismiss some things even if they trust us. But it'd be so good to have some other voice in their lives, and I think this course can do that. Can provide, you know, help them see through a lens that they're not going to see, maybe even in their own home. Our daughter, eventually, Courtney ended up, she got a teaching degree. She started teaching as a young 20 or 20 something, but then she got married very quickly as well and started having children, which she always wanted to do. So has she returned back to work? No, and she never will.
Yeah.
And my wife and I were like almost 99% sure she's going to get a degree. She'll never use it. I mean, we were like, it's going to be such a waste of money. And we don't think it was a waste of money.
Yeah.
It did help her mature some, all of
Yeah.
that. But now she is a entrepreneur. She started a cookie decorative business. So she makes cookies like for special occasions, for companies, for events, outings that companies do. And she makes really good money at it. And the
Yeah.
costs are almost nothing.
Yeah.
And she makes a great profit. If she ever wanted to turn something big, I told her, I said, I'm your first investor. Let me know.
Yes.
We'll get you a
Yeah.
location. Someday down the road when the kids are old, she'll do that. But I sensed that. I wanted that, but I just could not communicate it to her. So I I just think this course has that potential because it opens the eyes of these teens to think differently than maybe everybody else's, especially
Yeah.
your parents might be saying. So for
Yeah.
that, I'm very grateful that you guys have put this together, and I do hope it's very, very successful in
Yeah.
that sense.
I
What's
love that story. So I'm going to jump in here a second. I love that story so much because she's probably also finding great joy in the work,
mm,
which is
very
super
much so.
important, and it supports her life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it
Yep.
supports where she wants to be as a mother. And I feel like that's where people get stuck sometimes, right? It's how do you create something that supports the life that you want? I have a friend, actually a couple friends that had troubles with their career and they were like, this just isn't it for me right now. And I had one that made an incredibly brave, bold decision recently to walk away from her job with nothing else lined up. But the reason that it is that they could do it is because of financial stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
So this all comes back around. I feel like, I mean, it's having a knowledge and understanding about your own self, your career, but it's so connected also to money and in God's role and the role of money in our life and what the Bible says about that.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm just so encouraged also by the work that you're doing and that the pastors that are listening are doing, because like you said, it's not always the parent that is the strongest voice in the kid's life. It takes all of us. I mean, it really does. It takes so many of us to jump in and be able to have those conversations. And it is not easy for people to go against the grain. My
Mm,
friend went against the grain. Courtney
yeah.
maybe went against the grain. It's not easy to do, but if you plan, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
there are ways to do it.
Yeah. And having the support, whether it's your parents, mentors, spiritual
Yes.
leaders that are there to really just encourage you along the way and tell you, hey, you've got so much time. Because I
Yeah.
think sometimes kids think I have to make a decision by the time they get to their mid 20s. They think if I haven't made the decision yet, I'm never, I'm going to be a failure all my life. And it's like, you've got another 60 some years ahead
Yeah,
of
you're
you.
like, do I
It's
know
like,
what I want to
take
be
it
when I grow
easy.
up yet? Even? I
Yeah,
don't
slow
know.
down. Yeah, so I think that support encouragement is so important. How long does it take to complete you said it's 12 lessons, but
It's
does it
12
have to be
lessons,
12?
not necessarily. I mean,
Okay.
as far as content, it's about 12 hours. If you really
Okay.
give it the time and effort that it needs to, you could get it done in 2 days, right? It just depends on how quickly you want to go through it or how
Yeah.
slowly. Now, if you do it as a group, like I'm facilitating a group here locally this summer, and we're going to do 6 sessions, 90 minutes each, just
Mm,
because 12 weeks can take a long time.
yes.
That's a long time and you lose people or whatever. I'm like, no, we're just going to go. We're going to go. So it's flexible in that.
Well, that's good. That's good because the one thing churches struggle with is putting something like that on a calendar if it's
Yeah,
that many weeks.
for
And so
sure.
usually maximum is like 7 weeks. You can get away with 7. Once you get into 8, it's really hard to get people to consistently be there. And then if they were not, then they miss too much content. So, but the idea of putting it in a group and do it in a group rather than just individually, because that's a challenge with courses. We at CSN have developed multiple courses for leaders within our membership site, and the reality is people can develop courses, but we can't make them go through it. Doesn't matter how great
Yeah,
it is.
for
And a
sure.
lot of times the reason they fail, because I've purchased courses that I actually even didn't go through. I've had every intention, but then it's like, oh, it's not important anymore. Yes, I spent $20 on it, but whatever. And my point is that a course on its own, you doing it on your own, unless you just are passionate and it's the right time and you go through it and you devote the time and like you said, you go through it 2 days, it's really hard to get the
Keep
full
at it.
benefit of it.
Yeah,
But if you're signing up and you're doing it with a group, I think that just enhances the ability for it to be very
yeah.
productive for you. So
And
I love
having
that it
that
has that
person that
flexibility.
cares about you, especially when you're talking about teens, right? And you know that there's somebody in your life. Like I'm sitting in on there's a virtual group that's been going for a handful of weeks, and I'm super excited to sit on the, I'm looking at my calendar. I think it's June 30th. It's later this month that I'm going to be sitting in on this call. I'm not facilitating it. I'm just like showing up. Right.
Nice.
But it's so cool because the individual that's leading the group, I mean, I'm on his email list. Like when he tells them about the next month, when they're getting together the next month, and he is like calling out, I saw this in you last time. And I saw this in you last time. And I'm like, this is the best, you know, because I'm just like watching the whole thing happen. But like, he cares and he wants to be alongside them and walk alongside them, and he's doing it. And it's just such an incredible gift to see the way that the body functions in that.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to dig into this and figure out how to help our churches adapt this and figure out how to use it. I will tell you, Dana, one of the problems we haven't been able to fix, if I can say it this way, is that there is some content out there for teens and for young adults, but it's primarily helping them how to manage money. So it's really focused on how to manage money early in life while you're still maybe living at home or get your first job, or while you're going through college, just out of college. And those are great, but this hits much more to the core of that calling and connecting the calling and what you do for a living, something that you're gifted to do, something you're excited about getting up and doing every day, and connecting that to your stewardship, to the financial. You know, I believe that if you do what you love, money's not going to be an issue. You'll make good money, you'll make plenty, and you'll have the discipline to know how to manage it well. Right. So I'm excited about figuring out how to get this into churches. So we'll be promoting it. And I'd love to have you back on at some point to really talk about a little bit more on how this, you know, what's included in this course, just to kind of dig into it so that it gets people more excited about using this within their own churches. Because
I think we could come up with multiple hours of content, Leo, in this. So, okay, I do have to say one thing though about that. I think one of the challenges with young people when we're saying like, hey, if I sit down with my kids right now, my 12 and 10-year-olds, and we've talked about money forever in our house. So it is a very open and transparent conversation.
Excellent.
So they're actually like pretty good with money. I think if we come in as a church and we're saying like, let's do this financial thing, I think the question that I see with young people is why?
Yeah.
Like,
that's so true.
Why? Like, what is it? Like, why does this matter to me? You know, like, because they're still living with their parents, or they're like, it's not really real. My very last 3 credit hours in college, I took a personal finance class because I was so curious. I think I might have told you this when we first met.
I don't recall, so go ahead and say it anyway.
I took a personal finance class because I was curious and I wanted to learn. And mind you, okay, so I grew up with great parents. My mom has always been like the stickler financially. We didn't talk about it a lot, but I did not know. I was like 22, right? I did not know that you could buy something you couldn't pay for. I thought that debit cards were credit cards. Okay. I had no idea. I had no idea that there was a difference. No idea. I thought cash was cash, cards were cash. Obviously not. Okay. So I go, so I'm totally sheltered. Thank God. Yes, like, absolutely. Honestly, thank God.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so I'm in this personal finance class the very first day, and there's probably, I went to Michigan State. There's probably 300 kids in this class. It's big class. Okay. And the professor says, why are you here? People raise their hand. I kid you not, 75% of the class, I'm in more debt than I know what to do with.
Yeah.
Because so-and-so was given out a free burrito and I signed up for a credit card. And then I went and bought all these things, but nobody talked. Now they know why. Why are you here? Well, because I got a problem. Like, now I'm here because I got a problem. So it's just tough. And so I say that to like, I get it. It's hard, especially with the young people, because we do want to set them up, and this is the way we can go financially, and this is how we can put these plans together. How do we do that without them being in a bad situation already? It's the same with adults.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what you're describing is really important, because if we teach a financial class to teens, they're like, don't care. They will care when they have debt over their head and they can't seem to swim, so to speak. They're drowning. But we don't want that. So we're trying to teach them early to prevent that, but it's not connecting because they don't have the pain to motivate them to stay and to listen. So do we really need to let them experience the pain? I hope not.
I don't think so. I don't think so, but I don't have a good answer. You know, that's the thing.
You said you're teaching your children. My wife and
We
I have
are.
done the same thing.
Yeah.
We started teaching them how to manage money when we started giving them an allowance at 5 and 7. And to this day, they still operate on a budget. But that's because we made the mistake. We suffered the pain and we didn't want them
Yeah.
to
There you
suffer
go.
it. And so our mindset in the church, I know as a stewardship leader for many years, my thought was we can't teach everybody. One, we don't have the capacity. We're in a very large church, 30,000 plus. There's no way we can do something to cover everybody at every age group.
Right.
So we are still building the ministry, trying to figure out how to do that. And honestly, a lot of parents would come like, how do I teach my kids? And the only class that I did the whole 11 years I was there on staff, the only class that I did for parent on teaching kids was teaching parents how to teach their kids about money. And actually that went over pretty well. It wasn't a huge class, but it went over really well. And I have friends that to this day, it's like that class helped us to start teaching our kids because
Hmm.
it's not difficult, but if you're
Yeah.
not taught and if you feel like you failed
Yep.
financially, you don't
Yep.
feel equipped to help them. So that's
Right.
why I love this course that you guys are talking about, because I think this will grab their attention
Yes.
because
Yeah.
it's not talking about just money. It's talking about a
Right.
way for them to make money, which they do care about.
Right.
That's why they
Right.
follow people on, that's why they love Mr. Beast and people that are,
Yep.
making millions and giving millions because they want to know how to do that. But they
Yep.
also want to have a life that's fun,
Right.
right? Not just a job in a factory. So this course can help open that mindset to help them
Totally.
understand that you are called to be a specific way. God's gifted you to do that. And my hope is that through this course, kids will have, kind of a fire will light within them to pursue that and also be able to be trained up on how to be a good manager, steward
Yeah.
the resources that they have, because we
For
can
sure.
definitely do that alongside this and within this program as well. I don't believe that that's probably already kind of in there. I don't know the details of it because I've not gone through it, but it is a greater way to make that impact than waiting until they're in pain and then saying, let's help you get out of debt,
For sure.
which is not fun. And
Yeah.
that's painful. Don't want people to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
All right. Anything else before we end today?
I don't
Anything
think so.
else you want to
We could
share?
go on forever.
Yeah.
We could go
Okay.
on forever. No, I think that's good. I'm so encouraged to talk with others that are in this fight, just like front lines, talking with families and young people and have the heart and desire to serve them. So if there's anything we can do at Faith Driven, we'd love to. We'd love to connect with churches, with organizations so we
Awesome.
can help.
Well, go ahead and tell us how people can get a hold of you and Faith Driven Entrepreneur for Teens, where they can get the course,
Yeah.
all that. We'll add those
Yeah.
links in the teaching in the podcast notes, but go ahead and share that before we end.
Yeah. The easiest URL is fde4teens.org because Faith Driven Entrepreneur for Teens.org is a lot more difficult because
Yes.
entrepreneur is a hard word to spell.
It is, and it's long.
It's a long, hard word to spell, but I'll send you all the right links so you have them.
Perfect.
But
Right.
also you could just look up, Faith Driven is going to also, faithdriven.org is going to, or Faith Driven Entrepreneur is going to also get you to
Yeah,
teens.
have
And
those.
we
Perfect.
got them all, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love what you guys are doing. I've had the privilege of speaking with some other people on your team, and love to continue to collaborate and talk with you guys on
Yeah.
what you're developing as you're doing more. Please keep us in the loop. Come back, talk about this a little bit more. I know it's a deep need for churches to teach teenagers and young adults. So as you guys are developing those, please consider our network of churches that
Yeah.
really want to know and want to use this, and we'll share it far and wide so that we can get this into our young people.
Yay. Perfect. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Of course.
All right. And thank you for listening. We hope that this was valuable to you. Again, we're going to provide some links to be able to connect with Faith Driven Entrepreneur for Teens, learn about the Call to Create course. And our hope is that if this was valuable to you, one, that you'll reach out to Faith Driven Entrepreneurs and learn everything that they're doing. I think they can help you, your teens. And of course, if you're an investor or an entrepreneur, then they can help you along those veins as well. If you're a church leader, check them out and see how you can use this course, especially in a content where you can draw these teens together and you can really help them to get this early on. I think it'll make such a difference for young people, and you can help them grow and never, ever have to deal with the consequences of managing money poorly. So let's help them do that. And then please share this podcast with anyone that another church leader, maybe an executive or senior pastor of a church nearby that isn't doing anything and is looking for answers. We here at CSN love to provide that. You can contact us at christianstewardshipnetwork.com. We'd love to come alongside you and help you in any way. Again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on Stewardship Leader.